Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Coach Will with Big Little Gyms, and today I want to talk about the new gym money math. So if you guys don't know who I am, my name is Will Hurst. I founded several multi-million dollar per year businesses, including the one that I'm representing right now, which is my company, Big Little Gyms. We work with over 400 plus gyms in 100 global markets successfully, providing guidance, mentorship systems, tools, and essentially the whole business in a box for these gym owners. I also started and ran the day-to-day of two very successful CrossFit gyms for over a decade. So I know what it's like to be in the grind and in the trenches with you guys. So today I want to talk about the new gym money math. And the reason why I say new is because about 5-6 years ago, as of this recording right now, a guy named Alex Hormozi, which a lot of you guys probably know who that is by now. He's kind of become mainstream, but he's been in the gym world for a long time. And despite a lot of people in the entrepreneurial mainstream world thinking he's a new success, he actually had a ton of success with a company called Gym Launch, where tens of thousands of people already knew who he was then. And in 2016, 2017. He started booming, and a lot of his content at the time, which Gym Launch still uses despite Alex having sold Gym Launch, talks about this gym money math. And the belief he was breaking at the time was that the old model doesn't work. The old model of growing a gym doesn't work for independent gyms. So he himself owned 6 independent group gyms, and he slept on the floor at his gyms, and he did all the hard things in the trenches of his gyms. And he did it wrong for a while before he figured out what worked, right? Just like almost anybody who's good at anything, he has experience in doing things wrong before he figured it out, right? And so he started to invest in, growing himself, growing his business, and learning about leverage and things like that. And he figured out a model that worked. And that was because the model at the time what he was trying to model with from the big box gyms was this numbers game of discount offers and trying to acquire customers at a loss and floating that loss based on client lifetime value. And he tried that when he opened his gyms, and it didn't work. And then he started to go to more of a higher ticket front end model, using a lot of what was working at the time, which I'll get into, right? Okay. And so I want to kind of break down what his new money math in 2016, 2017 was, and then get into what I think is the new model, because a lot has changed, and there's a reason why Alex Hormozi doesn't own Gym Launch anymore, at least I think, outside of him being able to make a big score. But a lot has changed, and so I want to get into that. So the model he was breaking, the old model, was that big box gyms run this numbers game with discount offers in the front end to acquire customers at a loss, and they float that loss based on LTV because they have capital at their expense, right? So a big box gym, for example, would acquire a new client on a low barrier offer. So a low barrier offer would be running a $7, first month ad, right? And bringing in people with that $7 or $20 ad, right? And they would essentially spend right around $150 on average. This is like known math in the big box gym industry, that you can acquire new clients for around $150 in ad spend, right? So if these big box gyms will spend $20,000-$30,000 a month on advertising using newspaper, online advertising, and everything else, all these different campaigns, and they'll do their math and they'll figure out, okay, it costs around $150 by the time we acquire someone, right? And the average client is paying $29 a month. So if you do the math on that $29 a month, after you give away the first month, that means you're losing money for around 5 months. So those businesses will float that for 5 months. And their math is like this, that the average client stays for 36 months at that $29 a month, which equals $1,044 on average in total lifetime value for that client. Now, those big box gyms, they're in 100,000 square foot plus facilities where they could fit a lot of people. Plus, the model's predicated on a low accountability model of like people not really showing up and using it. Like Planet Fitness, for example, their entire business model runs out of like these 10,000 square foot locations where only 3% of the entire client base shows up and uses it on a daily basis. So it's low utilization, right? So $1,044 lifetime value with 3,000 members. If they, in those big box gyms, if they get that, that means they're going to make $3,132,000 in revenue. So there's just some like rough math for you, right? And it could, and some are more, like some Planet Fitness locations and big box gym locations will have 5, 6, 7, 10,000 members, with that lifetime value at 1,044. So you could see how that model works, right? They can do millions and millions of dollars per year in revenue with a client, lifetime value of 1,044, the client staying over 36 months, right? And if we were to do the math of what that costed them, say that same big box gym, does 3,000 members at 1,044 lifetime value, with each cost per acquisition equaling $150, that means the 3,000 members times $150 would only cost them $450,000 in total revenue, total cost, right? So that the math is there, right? That they do over $3 million in revenue with 3,000 members at a lifetime value of around $1,000, but it only costs them $450,000 to acquire that $3 million in revenue. So that's a 6.96 return on their ads, on their spend of advertising, right? And the point is that this only works for the big box model. And this is what Alex's original gym money math, the belief he was breaking was around this big box model not working for the independent gym, because A, the independent gym can't float 5 months of loss. B, the independent gym is usually in like a 3,000 square foot space, so they can maybe at most fit 7 or 8 classes a day of, say, 15 or 20 people, right? So they're capped at maybe a couple hundred people. So you can't sell 3,000 memberships to that, because even if 10% of them showed up, you wouldn't be able to serve even that 10%, right? Plus, a lot of the independent group gyms, and Alex never talks about this, but what I know about independent group gyms, at least the type of gyms that I ran, and the gym owners that I work with, a lot of them are like CrossFit, community-based gyms, kickboxing gyms, martial arts gyms, things like that. The community is very important. So there's very high utilization. Most of their 70 or 80% of their clients are using their gym on a day-to-day basis. So they really can't sell more than a couple hundred memberships, because it would be irresponsible and they would start to underserve people, right? Now, there's obviously, bigger versions of those gyms too. There are 10,000 square foot, 3 and 4 and 500 member independent gyms, but still, it's not a 3,000 member low ticket model. And because it's because it's lower volume, you have to go higher ticket, right? So there's like the big box gym model essentially is a model predicated on low ticket, high volume. It's the Walmart model, right? Sell a lot of things at a low margin, right? And then the independent gym has to flip that, where it's like we're lower volume, higher ticket, because our utilization is very, very high value. Okay. So Alex's new model, what he breaks down is that you want to sell a medium ticket offer on the front end, something that's, instead of a low barrier offer like $7 or $20, you're going to do a medium ticket offer on the front end, like $500 or $600. And when I say for the gym world, that sounds like high ticket, but in the selling things world, especially like in the online world, that's considered medium ticket. It's not considered high ticket. With the offer being a 6-week weight loss challenge, that's the main thing. Still to this day, that's pretty much what Gym Launch tells you to run, is a 6-week weight loss boot camp style challenge. And at the time in 2017, his claim was you can acquire these clients for around $30 to $60. And at the time, Facebook ads were really strong. There was low saturation. Not a lot of people were using Facebook ads. The offers weren't saturated in the market, and skepticism for buyers was super, super low. So in 2016, 2017, that was like early days of Facebook ads. And most people didn't know most of the users on Facebook didn't know what they were looking at and what a sponsored ad was. And there also wasn't a lot of competition and saturation. So people were more trusting of, like, when they saw these ads, I'm going to go try that out. And how his math worked, was that you were getting a $10 cost per lead using Facebook ads, and you'd close 1 out of 5 of those leads at a cost, which would pretty much put your cost per acquisition. 5 leads at $10 each means you spent $50 to get that one person to sign up. And you'd sell a $500 challenge, right? So $500 or $600 challenge, which means you would make, essentially, you spend $50 and you get $500 on that client, and you get a 10x front end. And if you're doing it at $600, you get a 12x front end, right? So easy math. It's great leverage, right? Like, it's a great leverage model. And you reinvest that profit to self-fund the next ad campaign. So say you spent $1,000 in ads, you got 20 clients at a total of $2,000. That means, you spent, so you spent, say $1,000 on ads, you acquired 20 clients at $500. It means you made $10,000 on the $1,000 ad spend. You have $9,000 you can now go and spend on your next ad campaign and scale that up, right? So you go and spend $2,000 on the next ad campaign, get twice as many members, and you're kind of self-funding the next ad campaign, right? You're bootstrapping your own business with the initial front-end ad cost of the first campaign, right? And that was the model, right? That's the model. That's their new gym model, and it's using it's using newly found leverage along the way with that cash. So say you make 9,000 and you spend 2, you got $7,000. I can now go and hire like a full-time coach or 2. And now what I do as a gym owner is I back out of the day-to-day of like mopping the gym, coaching the members, and I move into sales, right? I sell, right? And like in gym launches stuff, like there's a very sales intensive process to selling a more expensive thing. So they pretty much turn you into like a higher ticket salesman for your gym, right? And this worked at the time, but here's how that math is playing out now, because things have changed quite a bit. Like the math is kind of broken now, and it depends on your market. I still think there's a place for this. I'm not hating on it, but I'm just going to go over the numbers and be objective about it. That the cost per lead on Facebook is no longer $10, right? Your cost per lead on Facebook is more like $20, $30, maybe even $40 a lead, depending on your market. If you're in a competitive market, or if you're in a non-competitive market, you might see cost per lead down there. But you also have less people in your market to sell to in a less competitive market, right? Because it's usually probably like a small town. So it's all relevant, right? And then Facebook ad traffic is much colder. So I owned a gym in 2016, 2017 when this was going on. And at the time, we didn't run Alex Hormozi's ads, but we ran ads that were very, very similar. We weren't as big on the offer that he wanted to run with the 6-week weight launch. We ran something slightly different. But at the time, honestly, you could have ran ads for almost anything and they probably would have done well. You know what I mean? Like at the time, because again, Facebook ads traffic was pretty hot at the time. Also, group fitness was getting hot at the time. And you could close 1 out of 3, 1 out of 5 people you talk to off of Facebook ads. Now it's more like 1 out of 10, right? So if you start doing the math now, if I close 1 out of 10 people at $30 a lead, it's now costing me $200 or $300 to acquire a client, right? And even with that, though, I'll say you're still making money on that, right? So say you spend $300 to acquire a client and you sell them something at $500, then you're making a 1.5 times roughly like return, but it's not the 13 to 1 you were getting, your 12 to 1 or 10 to 1 that the claims were at the new gym math model in 2012. And what it talks about is like the sales and follow-up process on the leads are very, very intensive. Like, trying to cut through the noise of Facebook ads, especially with Facebook ads now, if you see an ad for one thing, if someone sees your gym's ad, they're probably seeing everybody else's gym's ads. How? Because the way Facebook does it, it's like a carousel that just rotates everybody's ads. It's a bidding process. And if someone's looking for fitness, Facebook knows it and they start showing everybody's ads in a rotation, and it's just luck of the draw on whether or not they click on you, but they're also clicking on 2 or 3 other ads. Okay. Now the problem here, the reason why this has occurred is saturation. Lots of gyms ran this in every market, right? Which is a minor problem. It's not a big problem. But there were like entire franchises that got built around this model. Like there's a franchise called The Camp, which opened up like 10 locations in every major city, which was pretty much like the gym launch model of 6-week challenges. That's all they sold, the 6-week transformation boot camps, that very sales intensive model, right? And then Iron Tribe was an example of pretty much almost like a pseudo CrossFit gym franchise that opened up in the South and in the Midwest. That when this got popular, they pretty much switched. They just bailed on the Tribe CrossFit model and pretty much said, we're going to just do 6-week challenges. And that like saturated every market. Competition picked up in general, group fitness spaces in general along the way as well. From 2005 to 2015, you pretty much had like group fitness, functional fitness gyms, CrossFit gyms, and like that was, and like there was like a few in every town. And my first gym opened during that time, and you didn't have to do a lot of marketing because there wasn't a lot of competition, and people were looking for gyms like this. It was red hot that the young millennials coming of age were like, we're going to do fitness this way. And so naturally competitors came into play, right? If it's easy, competitors are going to come into play. So Orange Theory came into play. F45, of course, CrossFit also like allowed affiliates to open up. Most big cities now have 100, 150, 200 CrossFit affiliates in every market. It's very competitive. And then Churn, the offer brought in a lot of non-fits. There's a problem with the offer that he doesn't really talk about in the new money model, in that the offer brings in a lot of non-fits. Now, this is partially the gym owner's fault in that like your job, because we run at our gyms, I'm not gonna lie, we run 6-week challenge type offers, but I've heard gym owners along the years say like, oh, it brings in these people that are non-fit. But I remember like not really having that much issue with it. We used to keep people at a very high rate, and that's because we adopted our fulfillment systems to more or less change the behavior of these people when they came in. Like it's not our job as business owners just to like let someone come in and then like, hey, we do things this way, and if they don't do it that way, you don't adapt, right? Maybe the first couple times, but after you realize you're getting 20, 30, 40, 50 clients and like they're churning, like you should adopt your fulfillment model to keep those people, because that's just smart. It's much easier to keep people, to figure out how to keep people, than it is to figure out how to keep replacing them, right? So that was definitely at the gym owner's partial fault. But I will say a lot of gym owners have a specific methodology and way of doing things that like this just wasn't going to work for, and they weren't willing to bend. Most gyms were built for volume, aren't built for volume. So logistically, if this worked well and I sold 50 people in a month, like the classes would get packed. It would decrease the experience in my gym, which again, also partially the gym owner's fault in that like like we used to run higher volume classes and we didn't have a problem with churn, but we were also like, our coaches were super, like we sat down and we talked about how to do this on a weekly basis with our coaches and how to divide and conquer. And we would run 2 or 3 coaches in a class. Sometimes we actually ended up getting a big enough space to subdivide classes into different programs. So we would have 350 members in our gym, 100 people working out on a Monday, but they'd be in 3 different classes, all having a great time, and the gym was just bumping. But we adapted. Most gym owners don't do that, or don't have the means to, or just aren't entrepreneurial enough to think about expanding their space that way and building and evolving the business, right? But nonetheless, logistically, it's an issue. And then churn rates are at a 70% plus as a result. And the lifespan of these clients often were like a couple months. So like, despite selling a $500 front end offer with this, with this new math model, the LTVs weren't really that much higher than the model he was comparing it against, right? And again, this is now, right? Like at the time it was good, but it's changed in that, like, if you go to, we have 400 gyms to work with, and we still have some gyms that still like to run this model, that we've essentially like a similar model. I won't say the exact model, but a similar model. And what I'll say is like, yeah, the lifetime values are not that high. Most of these people, a high percentage of these people are going to churn out. And essentially what it ended up doing on this model effectively turned the gym owner into a salesman to replace the lost revenue. So basically the gym owner would take 4 steps forward every month, selling a bunch of new people, but then take 3 steps back every month as they were like churning out the back door. And that just burns people out. All right, guys. So that was part 1 of 2 of the new gym money math, recapping the old new model and the old model. And in part 2, we're going to go over the new model going forward in 2023 and beyond for what is working for independent group gyms. So if you want to watch that video, go ahead and find part 2, which I'm going to publish right behind this. And the reason why we broke this into 2 videos is because we wanted to make this digestible, and we didn't want to post a big 30-minute long video that people were going to be apprehensive to watch because it's 30 minutes long. So we broke this down into 2 parts, with part 2 being the new model. So go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe button below, and continue on to the new model part 2 video.